You're listening to the Men in Blazers Media Network, Suboptimal Radio.
Wow, I got to play a sport for my job. And sometimes when you're in the suck and the grind, you like forget to reflect on the beauty of that. And so I think now it's just anything I do, if I just go and warm up, I'm like, wow, I get to warm up again. Where I used to joke a bit, like, gosh, this must be my 1 millionth warm up of my career. And now I'm like 1,000,001. 1,000,002, like of warm up. So I think perspective is always important in life, and Madden's given me a huge difference.
My guest today is a fierce back-to-back World Cup champion who's defined herself as the heart and soul of the US women's national team, repelling all comers with an intelligent ferocity, reveling in every opportunity to smite, smother and dominate, even losing a few teeth in the pursuit of victory. And anyone who's watched her play knows what a warrior my guest is, willing to attack by sea, by land, by air. And we're speaking to her at a remarkable moment, however, weeks after she's just returned to the game she loves, after 611 long days away, returning as a new mother to future US men's national team captain Matthew Ertz. It's been some transformative journey, and I'm genuinely elated. 66 days into the World Cup kicks off. From that delirious second-year franchise, Angel City, and your defending champion US women's national team, it's Julie Ertz.
Thank you so much for the introduction.
Julie, first of all, congratulations to you and your husband, Zach Ertz, on becoming parents. Your son, Madden, 9 months old already. How does it feel to be 9 months without more than 4 consecutive hours of sleep?
I feel pretty good. Coffee has been my new fuel. So between that and water, I have to make sure my hydration levels are right. But we're doing good, and Madden's just so fun.
Coffee is your friend. Matter of national significance. We must know. Is Madden working the drills yet? Can you confirm if he's chosen soccer over your husband Zach's beloved NFL?
We don't know yet. He hasn't quite used his feet yet, so he grabs everything so far. So doesn't mean that he can't be a goalkeeper. Doesn't mean that he hasn't decided. So it's undecided as of now.
I like to imagine Madden will be our men's captain in 2046, possibly playing alongside a then 78-year-old Tim Ream. But I want to pick your story arc up in a place of challenge. 2 years ago, the Tokyo Olympics 2021, and you played, despite spraining your MCL just a few months before. A bronze medal won for the US, which would be a triumph for almost any other program. But because it contained the dual traumas, losing to both Canada and Sweden, given the prestige of the US women's program, that third place finish was experienced as a disappointment. As a player, Julie, you once said that an Olympic loss in 2016 sat stewing in your soul for years. How hard was the Tokyo experience for you mentally? How long did it take for you to process?
Obviously, it wasn't a typical type Olympics, kind of still going through the quarantine process of like isolation and protocols and all that. So it definitely put a loop, maybe a different side mentally that I don't think most are prepared for. And not having your family and friends there for something that you trained for so long, as well as it being extended, made it get difficult because, you plan your peaks and when you want to be at your best, and having, it pushed back kind of changed the landscape of like kind of the maintenance for your body as well. So yeah, it just changed a lot. I mean, at the end of the day, I think, we didn't perform in the sense to be in that championship game, and that's on us. And that's tough. It's tough to swallow individually and collectively. And yeah, I think stepping away from it, just all encompassing, was just tough. Understanding the Olympics and getting the bronze is incredible. I think it'll just take a while. I think a lot of people told me like to process that it is.
How long does it take, Julie, for you personally?
I think years. I think also in my circumstance of after and then going through a family and stepping away and kind of having that being like, wow, was that my last game with the national team? Is it? Like, I think that kind of changes your perspective
Yeah, that's fun because you did just use the present tense when I asked you how long it's going to take to get over it. You talked about it as if it's still taking you time to process, as if it's still something that you're coming to terms with. You did leave with that thought that that might possibly have been your last kick of a ball in a US women's national team jersey.
Yeah, I've been so lucky to have a long career with the national team. But every year, I mean, you continuously have to fight and prove yourself to be on the team regardless. And obviously as time goes on and, processing what that looks like with my family off the field and just the reality of age and what that looks like. So I think, yeah, like I didn't necessarily know. And, after the whistle blew, I just remember kind of just sitting there and just being like, wow, like not like, is somber the right word? Like not in like the saddest of ways. It's just the last game we ended up winning. So it was great in that aspect that we came together to get a win, to get the bronze medal. And that's incredible in itself, and not to take away from that as well. But I think just, looking around, then it's just an empty stadium and, you're in a huge tournament and it's just kind of like quiet, and it was a lot. Like I knew that it was also Carly's last game. And like you could just see, her reflection, and then everybody else is just kind of like an interesting time, at least for me individually. I don't want to speak for other people, but it was just like an interesting time.
You are someone that does dwell on loss in such a fascinating way. I remember you talking about the Olympic loss in 2016. Is it true you made the background of your phone the quite harrowing sounding image of a single shot that you missed, a real chance in the tournament, so that you were reminded of that failure on the daily until you just went out there and won the World Cup?
Yeah, I just hate losing. I have a problem. And so it was just like motivation of just like, it's seconds of games, it's moments of games. It's just stuff to remember to when you go back and train, because one day, in training, in weeks, whatever, like it all adds up. And so like, just don't forget to do the little stuff. And it was just like being so, I feel like I was still saying I'm so young then, but like, it just was a good moment for me to just kind of be like, look, like, just at least learn from every game that you play in.
As I said, you were rushed back to play that Olympics from an ill-timed MCL sprain, and you stepped away in the wake of it, first to recover properly, to heal, and then embarking on a remarkable new chapter of your life, that of becoming a mother. And Julie, we've spoken to a number of athletes on this show, elite athletes who have chosen to have kids mid-career, and they've talked about the tension between absolute and uninterrupted devotion to yourself, to your craft, to excelling on the field, prioritizing training, performance above everything else, and also that profound desire to build a family off it. Everyone is different. How did you and Zach think through that balance as you talked through the right time for you to take this step?
To be honest, I think you don't know. Like, you don't know the exact time. I think we kind of just rely on our faith to be like, okay, like this is just kind of what we're going to figure out. And even that, like when we did find out that we were pregnant, we were obviously elated and excited. But then what does that look like after? I think instead of just like being overwhelmed with like the thought process of everything, and we just kind of took it month by month and just kind of figure it out.
Was a plan 100% always as you had this conversation to return to the field, or were even you unsure?
I think the desire in the back of my head was always like, how do you not want to be back to something that you love so much? And I think at the same part, yeah, like my selfish desires of being on the field now have changed, because Madden is our first priority, and making sure that everything is around him basically. And so obviously being in not an NWSL market, that kind of logistically changed things for me, and how that looked like for my family, as, my family is just so important. And obviously I think it's hard to step away from a game that you love so much, or anything that you do that you just love, to just be like, okay, I'm done, like is tough. And it's a tough reflection and tough conversations to have. And so I don't think it'd be like, yeah, I for sure was like, I'm back. Because the reality is I didn't know what my body was going to be like. I didn't know like what it was going to be like to be a mother. I knew that my whole life was going to change, so I didn't really have very many answers.
August 11th, 2022, your life did change. You gave birth to your first child, Madden, Matthew Ertz. Julie, first of all, happy belated Mother's Day.
Thank you.
And now, when you have a baby, everybody gives parenting advice. And I always find that somewhat surreal because every mother experiences the early days of motherhood differently. Every father does too. Every baby, again, is different. How has it been for you? How would you describe the early adventures, the early experience, the early feelings of motherhood in your own words?
If I was to put it into short, say beautifully overwhelming. In everything, I can't even put into words like the emotion that it comes with. And I knew everyone is like, oh, it's the best thing ever. You can't describe. There's no word to kind of describe where this person, you're their whole life. And like, that's so powerful in itself. And it's been incredible to watch Zach become the best dad like ever. He's so supportive. Like I wouldn't be able to even choose to be back in soccer. Like it's just so fun. And he's made it just so much more enjoyable. Like he was obviously a huge part of why I was able to come back. And it's a great balance for me with doing something that I love and keeping it as something that I love and not letting it kind of affect everything else, because then I can kind of switch to, okay, now I'm mom mode. So it's been a great balance for me.
I should add, Madden's arrival, as you've already hinted, was not the only massive transformation in your life at this time. You also moved back home almost 10 months before you gave birth. Zach was traded to the Arizona Cardinals, which was the NFL franchise closest to where you grew up in Mesa, Arizona. And amidst all of this change, I did wonder, when you were last on our show, you told me how you often dream about soccer, imagining not so much the glory of it all as the tactics of it, the scenarios.
Yeah.
Well, I was really struck by that even asleep, you are living through in your subconscious. Do those dreams continue through pregnancy and into motherhood? Or does it feel like you've learned and forgot a new language?
No, I think that's probably the part of like wanting to come back. Like, it's funny, like I just felt like I became a different student of the game for so long because obviously because I couldn't play, I was watching it and I was watching it in a different way. And not that I didn't enjoy watching the tactics of the sport before, but for some reason, it just because I couldn't necessarily be on the field to do that, I just was able to watch games kind of differently and watch it develop. And it didn't change by no means, but it did give me more drive to, in the back of my head, to want to come back.
Now, in this period, how frequently did you watch the US women? I've spoken to players who were part of the team and they're not able to play for different reasons. And they talked about occasionally how hard it can be to watch the team go on without you when you're not able to impact proceedings. Were you tuning in, glued watching, or did you find it difficult just to spectate?
I think right away after the Olympics, I needed to separate myself from soccer in a healthy way. And so I think in the beginning, it was more of just to decompress in that way. And then obviously finding incredible news that, Madden was on its way. After that, when, the craziness of moving and getting Zach traded here and finding out we were pregnant and moving closer to my family, and it was all this stuff at once that I think after everything kind of like settled down and I could like breathe, then I just enjoyed being the student again and kind of accepting like, hey, you're away from soccer and what is that going to look like in the future? I don't know. And instead of being overwhelmed with that, I just allowed myself to fall in love with being a fan of the sport, which is an interesting thing because not that I wasn't a fan when I was playing, but I was a player watching the sport because I was a player rather than a fan.
So how does that feel? I mean, do you watch the game differently as a fan, or are you still feeling you wish you could launch through the television screen and just tackle somebody?
Yeah, I definitely launched through the television for sure. But I think my husband was like, you're crazy. Like I would, especially when the Men's World Cup was on and like I would talk about, well, why aren't they doing this? Or they should do this. Or like whatever game we were watching. And luckily, Zach was just like, yeah. He's probably like, I don't know what you're talking about. But it's no different. It's not going to take me out from wanting to watch tactics and play and all that. But it was just different.
In this time, are you speaking to a lot of your teammates? Are you still in the WhatsApp groups, participating, checking in? Are any of them beckoning you back to the squad, or are they just also leaving you alone, allowing you space?
I think overall, especially after the Olympics, I think space was good. And also at the same time, it's like, you don't want to be a distraction at all. Like I wasn't obviously clearly going into camp. Like I don't know what my future necessarily holds. And, it's the time of just like typical after a big tournament. I mean, you have turnover, you have to bring younger players in, you need to try new things, you have all this stuff. And to be able to just kind of support from a distance. And watch and learn was a good space for me to be in, and kind of just to step away and enjoy the process of motherhood.
In your absence, Coach Vlatko Andonovski oversaw the beginnings, as you hint at, of a generational overhaul with that national team. You weren't the only veteran to step away after the Olympics, but that evolution, it included a few stumbles, as many and most evolutions do, including the team's longest loss streak since 1993. And you are and have been one of the most impactful one-player armies of a midfielder. Does it impact you, the team's record? Does it awaken some stirring sense of duty inside you? A bit like Batman suddenly seeing the bat signal, needing to drop everything and charge back on the field?
No, because I think I've been a part of the process of like just understanding the development and the importance of it, and also being a part of women's soccer growth, like really from the beginning of my career, from now just seeing kind of where it goes and the resources that, not just US Soccer's put in, obviously, to us, or the NWSL being put in, but Europe, other countries and national teams. So obviously the development of competition is going to thrive, and they were close games. So I think in our past, we're so used to being the one it was such a close game and getting the win. And that's a developmental thing that you learn through, the veterans that kind of teach you about the experience and the grid and all that kind of stuff. So you can see that the younger ones are learning, and that's what's important, because yes, obviously we want to win every single game, but you're developing for a World Cup, you're developing for the Olympics, you're developing the process of making sure that they understand that experience. And sometimes, unfortunately, you learn from your mistakes more than you do your wins. And if you don't expose the younger ones to that, or a little bit of failure, and you're just used to winning all the time, you're not going to be exposed for when stuff gets hard, especially during a tournament, because tournaments are wild. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, it's just like mayhem of just, you're a do or die time. And like, how else are you going to learn that if you don't just allow the younger ones to thrive in it?
So when exactly did you decide to return, Julie? Is it something that happens slowly? Does it gnaw on you and grow? Or does it crystallize quickly? Does it hit you like a bolt of lightning one day and it's just like, sit up in bed, immediately clear, it's time to return to football?
The dream of coming back is kind of always etched in the back of your head. But I do think there was a specific time-ish where I was like, okay, I can do this. Because there was a process. Like, if I was able to come back, I wanted to come back where I felt like I could actually compete. And I didn't know when my body was going to feel like that. I didn't know if my body was going to feel like that. So I think the process of the journey of like coming back and it being like, oh, I can do it. Oh, I can't. Oh, I can. Oh, I can't. I think you're just kind of like, of course I would have been like, yeah, I would love to be back after 3 months of postpartum, but it just wasn't the reality for me. And I think I just kind of allowed the process of just getting back and healing. And it took longer than I kind of thought, but it was just a process. I feel like that's the best way I can explain it.
You told the story about navigating that notion, the push and the pull of wanting to be home and also wanting to play again. A conversation you processed every step of the way with your husband, Zach. And you told the story of being on the couch, a quite an emotional conversation you had when you both realized it was time for you to return. Do you remember what you said?
Zach was like, put on, I'm like slightly embarrassed, but it's so funny. Like highlights, like a highlight reel, like of me playing, because he was like, you need to just like reflect on like, if you're done like this is like, that's your past highlight and it'll be your past highlight. Like, that's it. And I just remember sitting there, and of course I'm just like tearing up, because it's just, you bring back the memories that you can never have, like playing. Like, you're just grateful for everything that you've had. Whoa. And so, like, I think like just talking with Zach and everything, and being an athlete himself, obviously two athletes that are closer to the later of their career than obviously their beginning of their career, you just don't expect it. And like, you never want to be there. Like, you never know when the right time, because it's never the right time to ever be done in something that you love, because it's like, how do you like reflect that? And I think like the amazing connection that Zach and I have through sport is a reflection of just what opportunities like soccer has given me. And I think sometimes when you're away from it for so like whatever you said, 611 days. It doesn't feel that long, but it also feels like a heartbreak at the same time. You're like breaking up with the love of your life almost kind of thing, because it's just something that's been a part of you your entire life. And so it was an emotional, beautiful thing of just honesty and just talking about what sport is and how incredible it is and how unifying it can be and opportunities it's given people. It was clearly an emotional like reflection, but a pivotal moment in my return.
It's incredibly beautifully told. The loves of your life, Zach, Madden, and football, surrounded by all three of them.
Yeah.
And, football is magnificent. It's a thing that bonds us. But for you, it's also, there's a grinding side. There's a mountain that you have to climb. It's not just a switch that you flip back on. When you decide, Julie, that the return is real, we back up. What was it in your mind that you were turning to? Was it specifically the possibility of one more World Cup that beckoned you back? Or was it also the club level, the daily grind, the locker room, the competition, the sweet, sweet competition? What was the gravitational pull in your mind?
Gosh, so many, right? Like, obviously, I understood the timeline of a World Cup year. Obviously, that's not in your back of your mind of how incredible that tournament is and even just a possibility of being a part of that. And because soccer is my outlet, that I can be where there's nothing else that I can be that like Julie Ertz on the soccer field anywhere else. Like the competitiveness, the aggressiveness, the wanting to grind, the team camaraderie, the locker room, like stuff that like you just can't replicate in life. So you just miss it because it's a part of you that you kind of just can't express in any other way. I tried on the pickleball court and all these other like endeavors of things, but it's just the battle part of it that everyone loves so much is just hard to replicate. So yeah, I think it's that. It's just the beauty of the national team, of representing your country and wearing the crest is just nothing like it.
So you like the wind sprints till you vomit, the grueling regime of physical pain, nutritional discipline, unshakable focus. Are you just like, yeah, I love that too? Or as part of you like, oh my God, I know I want to get back there, but I've got to put myself through hell to even step foot on the field again?
I think I took it week by week of just getting back. I had incredible support from other moms that have come back and just kind of understand at least hey, this is what I've done. This kind of was my timeline and understanding that. Yeah, I mean, do I hate pushing myself to run until I puke? Yes, that grind wasn't that great. But then once you hit over that hump and you're like, okay, like sometimes you just have to kind of get over the suck and then you just wait until the new suck. And then, I don't know, it's also a process that you learn about yourself. I've learned so much about myself and being a mom and being a soccer player and all that. And the reflection of, you're like, wow, I got to play a sport for my job. And sometimes when you're in the suck and the grind, you like forget to reflect on the beauty of that. And so I think now it's just anything I do, if I just go and warm up, I'm like, wow, I get to warm up again. Where I used to joke of being like, gosh, this must be my 1 millionth warm up of my career. And now I'm like 1,000,001, 1,000,002, like of warm up. So I think perspective is always important in life. And Madden's given me a huge difference that I've enjoyed.
You mentioned, we're all living in an incredible age where motherhood and elite athletic performance have never been more intertwined. So many US women's national team players have kids. Alex Morgan, Crystal Dunn, Jessica McDonald, Ali Krieger, more and more and more. Which ones were you speaking to about this new work-life balance?
I mean, when we were back in camp, it was just cool to see. And I also think it's even just being around players who have had that. So like in 2015 World Cup, it was A-Rod, Boxy, and Piercy, who all also had their kids around. So it's like I was able to see these super moms, and I had respect then because I already knew it was incredible. But now it's obviously to a whole new level. And as well, a gratitude to them that I feel like I can't even repay because of the resources that they fought for that I'm able to have now to perform with that support that they didn't necessarily have. And I think that's an emotional piece that you could even talk to, that those moms had to go through so much to just fight for the term soccer mom to be to the level that it is now and to be able to get back and return and play and do both and then be supported in both. And so just to even be around them and like learn from those that I have played with. And of course, the moms now, and Crystal's timeline has been immense for me and inspirational, just because she did have Marcel kind of right before Madden, and just watching her process and her mentality has been incredible. And then a big one to help has been Shayna Matthews, who's with the Jamaican national team, who has 3 boys. So it's a club at this point, and I'm just like love watching them, because I think it's just as inspiring to watch them do it. Even on the hard, exhausting days, you're like, okay, this is special.
Motherhood FC. I love that notion.
Yeah.
But April 8th, 2023 in Austin, Texas, you ran back onto the field against Ireland, back for the first time in 611 long days. You were received by cascading cheers. Alex Morgan was the first to give you a hug. Becky Sauerbrunn placed the captain's armband upon you, and you ran in. Take us back to that moment, Julie. What emotions were you experiencing inside? Was it adrenaline, nerves, excitement, fear?
You know, just pure excitement. Like I think it was just like a movie. Like I felt like I was in a movie. Like, how was this like my return? One, it was like I had my 100th cap in 2020, and then everything got locked down, and like I didn't want to necessarily celebrate it without my family. And I thought, like everybody else did, like, oh, we'll go back and be back in like July, like a few months later, and like didn't be the case at all. So 3 years later, and of course it being my first cap back was like kind of not awkward, but I was like, I'm sorry guys, this is not normal to like be celebrated just to be back for your first camp, where you should just come in and grind and all this. So it meant a ton to my family, like they've obviously been through my journey from the beginning. So they were just unbelievably excited. Not even that I was like coming back, but just that they felt like they could celebrate with me. So I think that moment, like, how is that my first game back? Like, I didn't even know if I was going to play. Like, I was just thankful that, you know, they could just have a frame of a jersey and I could get the girls to sign it. Like, that's just what I was really excited about. So when they mentioned that they felt that I was fit enough to be able to get some minutes, I was obviously really giddy inside. I try to play it as cool as possible. So yeah, it was surreal. Felt like a movie.
You wasted no time. You immediately collected the ball, sparked an attack, elevated the tempo of the game, found those quick passes, evaded Ireland's physicality, and jolted the US side with an energy that you provided. You were flying.
I think it was just buildup of joy. I felt like I was a kid on pickup, you know, where you're just like, I'm surprised I didn't try to shoot it from half line or do something ridiculous where you're just like, I don't know. It was clearly a buildup of 611 days of just dreaming about playing. And then now it just like was real life, and just the joy to play with players that are the best in the world. Like, how do you not ever be so excited to play with the best in the world? Like, are you kidding me? Like, to have a midfield of Rose and Linz and I get to sub in and play with these players. Like, wow, what a joy. Like, yeah, I think Vlatko's correct words, I think he was saying it nicely, was, yeah, she went a little bit off script. I said, fair enough.
You also picked up a yellow card within 5 minutes, which was a true and emblematic signal that Julie Ertz was back. Oh, but final whistle, how natural did it feel? What did you think of as you walked off? Were you just like, yeah, we're doing this?
Yeah, I did feel that. And I felt this like odd sense of like confidence and proud moment of like doing it as a mom. Like, I've seen every, you know, incredible moms do it and come back on the national team and into the NWSL. And I didn't know that it was going to be in my story or my journey. So I just was like at a moment of just like, okay, like, we're diving into this. Like, and the whole thing of like, you know, to raise a family takes a village, and to have my village there with me was just a moment that I just, again, like I keep saying it's a movie because I still can't even believe like I'm here. Like, even when I show up to the locker room or I'm about to go to warm up, you're just like, all right, like, we're doing this. I say that to my husband every week. I'm like, all right, we're doing this.
The international return was one phase. The second was finding a club, Angel City FC, that state-of-the-art, big brand, big passion, SoCal club, featuring Ali Riley, June Endo, and featuring soon-to-be an American icon, 18-year-old Alyssa Thompson. What was that courting process like when your club was still TBD? Is it like every club owner, every former teammate just having you on speed dial, just blowing up your text, being like, come play with us?
I was really grateful for the amount of teams that reached out. To be wanted feels good. And just to see that people believed in my return. Like I believed in myself as well, but I just think people need people. And so I think even just somebody saying like, we're grateful to have you back, it goes a long way. Like, I think just even the confidence part or the mentality piece and just why you play, like, wow, like it goes a long way, I think. And so for teams to be like, I'm not sure if this is a possibility, but if it is, like, we would love to have a conversation and just to open that door. And obviously I have a lot of different, logistics and what would work for my family and all that as well. But there's so many obviously incredible clubs in NWSL. So it was a processing of what would work. And Angel City was the absolute best fit for me and the resources that they've given me and their want and support of me from the beginning of their start as a club went a long way.
Yeah, I'm fascinated. What's it been like for you? You didn't just choose a club. You chose one of the most ebullient atmospheres in American soccer. Bank of California Stadium, the banners, the pink flares. What's that been like to run out and experience?
As a player, one that's been obviously out of the NWSL for a few years, to see the growth firsthand is a dream. It's like seeing a dream come true. Our first game that I played in, it was sold out. And so for those fans that were there, I know that every one of the like owners or anyone that was connected to the program here was like, how was it? Like, did you love it? And I was like, I loved it. Like it was incredible, unbelievable.
Was it like waking up from a sleep and just seeing the whole world had changed? You're like, oh my Lord, since I've been away, what is this game? This is incredible.
Yeah, it's what you've dreamed of. It's why players have fought to play, or even if you like saw what players were willing to play on, that like our contract wise were like basically nothing. Like I didn't have a locker room my rookie year. Like it was why those players sacrificed so much for those players, like to even like with like Alyssa, for example, to be 18, to get drafted, to be there. Like that's what we dreamed that we would have so that you could have that. And like, I know so many women that have sacrificed that so that this could be a reality. So I think to be part of that timeline, to see the growth of the full circle dream, it's just like a thank you to every fan that ever has bought a ticket. Thank you for every fan who's bought a jersey. And like already to see people holding my jersey, I was just like, gosh, like you just can never get over that as a player, because like somebody was willing to spend their own money to pick your name, to pick your jersey on the back of it, to be at a game so that your dream could be a reality.
You made your debut against San Diego Wave, your first task to limit Alex Morgan. Very next game against your Portland Thorns, you scored the most Julie Ertz goal of on-brand legend. A perfectly timed run to the near post off a set piece, heading it past the keeper, almost into the net before they'd even seen you. Those set piece headers, they really are one of the greatest weapons of your game, just delirious. And as you ran joyously towards your teammates, the announcer shouted with total joy, that jubilant feeling we'd all been experiencing, Julie Ertz, she's back. Honestly, I thought in that moment, I was like, God, what does that feel like for you? An announcer screaming again, Julie Ertz is back as you score.
Like, it's again, like I feel like I am like a broken record of it. Just was full circle. And it's a moment of like, you're just on the process of just, checking one box at a time, not looking too far ahead. And I think that was like a moment for me of like other people kind of see like my commitment and my possibility of, getting back to where I was, but even more so and hopefully better. And so it's just a good support from the outside as well of just my journey.
One of the most incredible parts of this whole experience is that you are talking about this, that you don't just want to be back, but what you just said there, you want to be better. You said recently, I love the sport differently than I did before. And I did love it before, but taking a step away and kind of having a new perspective has given me a new drive. What is that new dimension of love, Julie?
I think probably stems from the reality is that you just can't do it forever. I've learned that like soccer has, again, given me so many incredible opportunities, friends, teammates, and soccer doesn't owe you anything. Like, that's just the reality, is like the game moves on. And I think that's what's sad, because you want to make an impact onto the sport and it's beautiful, but it just like moves on. Next person plays, the younger one kind of comes in, and it's like a sad reality, because you're like, but like, isn't soccer going to miss me? And like, it doesn't, like, and it's like a hard reality. And at the same time, you just then become indebted to this sport that allowed you to be you and a better you. Like, I've been able to do things that I wouldn't without it. And it's helped me in all aspects of not even just obviously the sport, but like with my family. Like, it's been fun to be like a soccer family. I joke that like growing up, my mom had this like red minivan, and we had like this, you know, those decal stickers. Like, I don't know if that's a thing anymore, but it was like a minivan, and the wheels had soccer balls on them, and it said taxi. And it was like the cheese. I'm like, Mom, why'd you put this on it? But it's just like, it's allowed my family to do things and travel that I could have never dreamed of. So it's life.
God, isn't it amazing? You'll be able to embarrass your children as your mum once did you with that taxi sticker for you. That's the cycle of life.
I know.
I'm going to get you that sticker.
You're going to find it. I'm sure it's still out there. It was a hot commodity, I'm sure.
But, you know, Alex Morgan came on recently, and she said to us that being a mother changed everything for her. That before that, you know, like all athletes, as I said, she'd been focused purely on herself, but that by being a mother, caring about something other than herself, a child, led her to realize that the world was bigger than her, and that she'd seen the collective differently, the squad. As being a mom, a mother, has it changed you as a footballer?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think even just the way I approach things, like obviously I feel like now I'm even more like motherly, and like just like making sure everything's like okay. But yeah, I think it's just, you also learn how selfish you are, not in a bad way. I think to, you know, be great and be selfish about your career and all that. But yeah, I think you learn that it's just kind of outside of you. Like, just, you know, we're so singular focused sometimes because you want to kind of develop whatever. And I can't be selfish with my time. Like, my child is first. I got to make sure his needs are there, and then mine. And I also don't have like room for excuses in that way, because of, you know, this is just kind of the journey that I've chosen. And my whole perspective has changed in everything, in every aspect.
Last question for you, Julie. The World Cup, as we pod, just 66 days away. The end point possibly of a long journey that honestly many weren't sure we'd find you on again. And the squad has not yet been announced. We have no idea who will make it. But there is the distinct possibility of magically wearing that US crest again. And I'm wondering, when Madden is, say, 10 years old, how would you explain this chapter of your remarkable journey to Madden and what you've learned from it to him when he's older?
Well, I feel like I would have to thank him for allowing me to fall in love with the sport, like childlike again. You know, when you're like super young, and it's because like seeing through his eyes of just almost the innocence of him and the beauty of life, and kind of through like the ups and downs and the hearts, whatever, there's always like joy, because he's like always our joy. He's like the new additive, you know, you don't sleep, you don't do this, but like you have this beautiful child that just smiles and loves you. Obviously, I got to continue and prove my worth to be there. And that would be my dream, to be on the roster. But even so, just the journey of watching myself get back and training and being able to play the sport that I love, it's really like a thank you to him for allowing me to find balance in a sport that sometimes is like so chaotic of life, that you keep me sane, like in the sense of just finding joy because he's our joy. So it's like in every way, it's like, how do I add Madden in my life to add a balance? And that's just has been, I think, the key.
To more joy, Julie. You are such an inspiration. Millions across this nation are rooting for you, are inspired by you, to your family, to Madden, Angel City, and the United States. Godspeed, and thank you.
Thank you.
You're amazing. Courage.